Welcome to LawNext, the podcast where we spotlight the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. On today's show, I'm joined by Mark Cohen and Dr. Dierk Schindler to discuss a notable announcement this week in the legal innovation landscape, the union of two organizations devoted to driving digital transformation in legal, as the Digital Legal Exchange, also known as DLEx, is joining forces with the Liquid Legal Institute, or LLI. The union adds up to an organization of more than 1,500 members, representing more than 140 companies, organizations, institutions, and agencies spanning all major industry sectors in more than 20 countries across 5 continents. Both organizations were founded independently of each other in 2018, and both have been at the forefront of legal transformation ever since. The Liquid Legal Institute, which Schindler co-founded, is an international think tank devoted to legal transformation. Its members span the entire legal sector and those touching it, from legal departments and law firms to legal tech companies, LPOs, and other service providers in the legal market. Meanwhile, the Digital Legal Exchange has been an independent membership forum for general counsel and senior innovation leaders focused on accelerating digital transformation of the corporate legal function. It was co-founded by Cohen, an internationally known legal business consultant and longtime columnist for Forbes, who is its chairman emeritus, and Bill Deckelman, who's been chief legal officer at several major enterprises and who is its chairman. With this strategic union, DLEx will continue to operate within LLI as a curated legal executive forum called the Digital Leaders Exchange at Liquid Legal Institute. The union is designed to combine the two organizations' complementary strengths, LLI's broad community approach and DLEx's executive-level focus, to create what both organizations believe will be a more powerful platform for driving legal transformation. In today's conversation, we'll explore what led to this union, what it means for members of both organizations, and how they envision the future of legal transformation. I am Bob Ambrogi, and this is LawNext, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. Before we get to today's conversation, please take a quick moment to hear from the sponsors who so generously support this podcast. Reclaim your time with Practice Panther, the all-in-one legal practice management software trusted by tens of thousands of attorneys worldwide. With automated time tracking, secure client portals, and customizable workflows, you'll transform non-billable administrative tasks into streamlined processes. Practice Panther's intuitive platform handles everything from client intake to payment processing, allowing you to focus on what you do best, practicing law. Visit practicepanther.com today to start your free trial and discover why leading firms choose Practice Panther. You didn't go to law school to waste time writing and responding to discovery requests. Never waste time on discovery again with BriefPoint. BriefPoint drafts your discovery responses and requests for documents within minutes of your first sign-in. BriefPoint is the most reliable discovery drafting solution on the market, and it works right out of the box. Get your first document drafted by going to briefpoint.ai and clicking Get Started. No credit card required. BriefPoint. Draft what matters, automate the rest. In an ever-evolving legal market, there's one thing that stands the test of time: great client service. That's where Lex Reception comes in. Their agents are available 24/7, 365 days a year to answer calls, qualified leads, onboard new clients, and schedule appointments. With bilingual agents and software that can seamlessly integrate with your current workflow, you'll never miss a call or future case. With over 12 years of experience, Lex Reception gives lawyers the time and freedom to focus on core legal work and helps them grow their firms, all while building their reputation for great client service. Check them out today at lexreception.com. Now let's get to today's conversation. All right, I'm happy to welcome to LawNext today Mark Cohen, Dierk Schindler. Thanks to both of you for taking some time to speak with me today.
Happy to be here.
Well, there's some news for us to talk about here today, but before we get into all of that, I wanted to give our listeners a little bit of opportunity to learn a little bit more about each of you and your respective organizations. So, Dirk, why don't you kick us off? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about the Liquid Legal Institute?
Happy to do so. Thank you, Bob. So, Dierk Schindler, my name. I'm a lawyer by profession. Studied law in Germany and a PhD in European law. Started in private practice, actually founding a law firm in Munich, and then very quickly moved in-house, which ever since was my legal career there, and then very quickly stumbled across the legal tech wave, the opportunity to do something with that, and then also a process-driven legal department, and so the topics mounted there. And at some point, and that's a segue to the Liquid Legal Institute. We all scratched our heads in the 2015, 16. So what are we going to do with all of that change that was on the horizon for the legal profession, but also in terms of technology? And that's when we had it with a couple of friends, and actually the co-founders, Kai Jakob, Roger Strathausen, to launch the first Liquid Legal book, because we said, as much as we appreciate roundtables and things like that, we will not have the wisdom on our own. So we need a collective kaleidoscope type of view, and invited a panel of, which turned out to be almost 30 authors, to launch the first Liquid Legal book, Transforming a Profession. And that got very well received. And in the thank you call with all the authors, the call was there. We can't stop here. We have this out. All the thoughts are there. What do we do with it? And so we said, well, then, if Germans get asked that question, we think about an association. And that's what we did with a few people, a handful of, you need 7 in Germany. And that was the nucleus of the Liquid Legal Institute. And we said, well, let's do something which we today call a duocracy. So member-driven, emerging topics, what's hot, what's relevant, and then do something with it, create output, white papers, projects, things like that. And, very quickly it grew to, a dozen and more. And by now, that was 2018 when we founded, and by now we fill more than 1,500 seats. And I think what's important about the Liquid Legal Institute, it's neutral. It's only membership fee based in terms of funding, and it is as diverse as the changing legal market is. So it's big law, small law. It's not only lawyers, it's technology, it's advisors. So it's across the board, and it has grown international, specifically European centric in the first place. And so now we are really happy that we're getting close to DLEx, that we are internationalizing, also in the US much more. So that's maybe a quick intro.
Thanks. Mark, same question to you. I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself and also about the Digital Legal Exchange.
Sure. Happy to, Bob. So I have been kicking around the legal business technology industry for almost 50 years. The first 30 plus years of my career, I was a practicing lawyer. First and the best legal job, in quotes, I ever had as an assistant U.S. attorney, where over the course of 3 years, I tried 21 major federal cases, including appeals, en banc appeal, and a case that went all the way up to the Supreme Court on the first constitutional class action challenge against the United States on an immigration claim. And so from there, I went directly to big law, where I had a rather unusual career trajectory and became a partner on day one. You can imagine, just how thrilled my new partners were to learn that I had never spent a day as an associate. I spent a few years there, was asked to be on the National Management Committee. It was a firm called Findlay Cumble that at the time was the second largest law firm in the United States. And
I remember it well.
really created the prototype for what I think the contemporary big law firm is. It did a lot of things right, and it did some things not so right.
Right.
I decided rather than just stay and be on the management committee of the firm, I would start my own firm, which was something entirely different. We were in 1991 very tech-centric. I went to one of my then largest clients, AT&T, and said I wanted to connect my 3 offices. I wanted to have a virtual law library. I wanted to, have video conferencing that connected our 3 offices across the country, not only internally, but with 6 or 7 of our biggest clients. That was really my first exposure to being a customer of what is now, I guess, called legal tech. That coincided with a federal judge in New York appointing me to run a very large international aviation parts business that was wildly successful, but did not choose to share its success financially with the government. And as a result, my job over 10 years was to repatriate about $130 million, which I was able to do. And that really was my first experience. It was my MBA on the fly. And it really gave me an idea from the customer perspective of what it was like to manage law firms around the world and how important it was to have a kind of an integrated strategy. I also applied that learning. 3 of my clients who were in the large insurance companies asked me while I was practicing to be their outside general counsel. So that gave me a very keen understanding of some of the frustrations of dealing with a supply chain. And I know that law firms bristle at the notion of being described as part of the supply chain, but nonetheless, that's what they are. So fast forward, I decided I no longer wanted to engage in the practice of law, even though in the last years of my practice, it was much more of a strategic role than it was a sort of a case-by-case tactical one. And I found that fascinating. Bob, as you'll well remember, and Dierk, you do too, I co-founded a company called ClearSpire. For anyone who wants to hear more of that, I suggest you read the ClearSpire story, which is a pretty, dare I say, honest business monograph and personal story of what I learned from the experience. I call it my $2 million tutorial. But nonetheless, it kind of set the stage for me to sort of step back and say, well, what have I really learned and how might this idea be applied through others? And I started writing for Forbes. I've done that now for 10 years. Started doing a fair amount of speaking around the world. I've done quite a bit of teaching at law schools and business schools in different parts of the world, including Germany, where Dierk, you'll remember, at Bucerius. Now I created an umbrella a few years ago called Legal Mosaic, which is kind of, sort of a nom de guerre for the activities that I engage in. Turning to the Digital Legal Exchange, which is now going by the way of the Digital Leaders Exchange at LLI, but I'll let Dierk talk more about that. And Bob, I'm sure you'll question that. Bill Deckelman, who was then the long-term and very creative general counsel of DXC Technology, with whom I had had a long professional and personal relationship with, asked me if I would look into creating a think tank that would be able to basically leverage on his experience of, sort of doing the things very differently. He was really a pioneer, I think, in the digital transformation of the in-house legal department. And I was very enamored of what he had done. I figured I needed someone very academic. I'm at best a pracademic. So I turned to my good friend, Michelle DeStefano, and asked if she would help me put together a business plan for the exchange with the threshold question of, is this something really worth pursuing? We decided it was. We created the business plan, and the Digital Legal Exchange was launched in 2018. We set out basically to focus, to be a think tank, but to be an applied think tank, very much like LLI. We wanted it to be academic, but very practical. And we wanted to really work with general counsel and leadership, regulators, business people on how it would be for the legal function as I put it, to try to capture its inchoate enterprise value by operating differently and by expanding its remit beyond the legacy parameters of what legal departments do, to a function that would better serve business and its customers. And so we pursued that for several years. While this was going on, I was very aware with what Liquid Legal was doing. I thought it was great. I was friendly with Dierk. I was friendly with a couple of his colleagues, notably Kai Jacobs. And I had made several trips to Germany, and I, sort of put into their ear that one day it would sort of make sense, perhaps, if we could consider getting together. And through a convergence of circumstance, I think the window of opportunity really widened about 6 months ago. So we, sort of stepped up the conversations, and I'm delighted to say that this is one of those rare instances where egos were not, a negative factor in this. Everybody was really on the same page pretty much from the start. And we were very, very excited at the opportunity to kind of make 1 and 1 11. And not just, for our organizations, but more importantly, for the industry. So that's my not so quick nutshell, Bob.
That sounds good. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell listeners that another way they can learn about ClearAspire is by listening to your prior appearance on this podcast a few years back, in which you talked about that and many other things. And Bill Dinkelman's also been on this podcast one time in the past, so listeners can look for that. But so we've been kind of dancing delicately here around the news, what's being announced here. But let's get to it, and I could spell it out, but Dierk, why don't you do it? Why don't you tell us what it is that we're talking about here?
Yeah, I'm really happy to do that. So as Mark already indicated, the close collaboration between us as persons, but also as groups, and I've also had the honor to be on the faculty of DLEx, brought up the topic several times. Couldn't we join forces somehow? And that's basically what the announcement is, that DLEx and the Liquid Legal Institute decided to move together and integrate this, distinct community that Mark has built with Michael Stefano, with Bill, as the digital leaders exchange within the Liquid Legal Institute. And what makes me so happy, and what Mark has rightfully described as 1 and 1 making 11, is that this is a very complementary move. So we start from a very strong common basis, which is what did you call it? A kind of applying forward thinking and forward thinkers, and putting them into groups, having them discuss and create outcomes that the community can benefit from. Exactly the same that the Liquid Legal Institute is up to, but we approached organizations and teams, and as we started 2018, the first catch we made in organizations typically was second, third, whatever level. We didn't really care. We called it the doers or shakers. So those back then in organizations that you would need to find that were thinking forward, driving projects, looking, to really implement innovation, ready to exchange with others to kind of combine strengths. Well, Mark and Bill had started with, let me call it the executive level, which we gradually also invited. So we have a significant amount of general counsels, business leaders, managing partners of law firms within the Liquid Legal Institute also. But so far we have not very much looked at them as a distinct group. So they would participate in roundtables, in projects, in publications, as the Liquid Legal Institute works. But I think what DLEx does perfectly is to create a space for that group to have an exchange, in that spirit, which is valuable and that is required for in an executive level. And what we now do is say, like, well, you can do this within the kind of the broad spectrum of the Liquid Legal Institute, but you can now bring your organization. You can bring your teams to get engaged in projects, initiatives, roundtables, and so on. So moving from individuals while maintaining their specific space, moving from individuals to also teams and that exchange, and complementary in the sense that we say, like, our strongest footprint for sure is starting in Germany or the German-speaking part of Europe, and then Europe as such. Also, beginning in Asia, Australia, also in the US, but clearly the significant footprint that DLEx has in UK and US is very complementary to what we do. So it's a win-win-win all around. And initial feedback that we receive both from the Liquid Legal Institute community, but also more importantly from the DLEx community is super positive in terms of seeing that, added value and additional opportunity.
Yeah. Mark, both of your organizations obviously have kind of emphasized this community building, emphasized transformation, innovation. And you've both made the comment that this is a situation where that 1 and 1 adds up to 11. From your perspective, what does that 11 look like? How does this add up to something better for both organizations?
That's a great question. Well, I think that for a long time, Bob, my view is that our industry has been too balkanized. Law schools don't really do much with the marketplace. The marketplace is very fragmented. Certain bar associations, although they do some good things to be sure, but they are, I think, more concerned about their dues-paying members and not stepping on toes than there are other organizations that are pay to play. What I liked about Liquid Legal, and frankly like about the exchange, is that we are not sponsor driven. As Dierk said, we are independent, and we have a goal of when we say creating the community. The way I take it, and Dierk, I encourage you, if you don't see it that way, to please, give me your take. But I see it really as an opportunity. What I like about the exchange is we thought we have to start somewhere, and to have an impact, let's start at the highest level. But I was keenly aware, as was Bill and Michelle, that from the beginning, the highest level now may not be the highest level in even 3 years. And it may not necessarily have all the skills that are going to be required going forward. And so I like the idea of the exchange merging its highest level with the future people who are coming up. I like merging with law firms because they are very much part of the mix. I've always thought the distinction between, from the customer perspective, between law firms or ALSPs or any other kind of providers, the distinction between that and in-house teams is a legal fiction. It shouldn't matter to customers. I've been a customer. I don't care what uniform the person doing the work is bearing. I just need the job to be done and done well. And so I think by putting our organizations together, Bob, I see it as a community that is really, sort of a bigger and better cross-section of the industry. And I think that is going to lead to dramatically better research, dramatically better education for the future, and dramatically different point of view for clients to be able to perceive what's out there and what's available that needs to be tapped into.
Dierk, you said that your members, I think you said the members of both organizations have been more than receptive, that they've been glad to hear about this union. In your communicating to them about this coming together, what did you kind of express to them as the sort of immediate benefits that they're going to see out of this?
Yeah. So as I alluded to before, so invite the DLEx community, the communication was really from individual to team. So, what all the discussions that I also participated in being on the faculty of DLEx, inevitably center around, topics of transformation, be it in organization, in the adoption of technology, in how services are being acquired, built, and so on. And in the end, this is all done with and through organizations. So, and that is the opportunity, kind of that aspect is right there at your fingertips within the Liquid Legal Institute, because the way we work is through, I mentioned duocracy, through doing stuff, creating white papers, having roundtables. And the second message, again, towards the new part of our community was, and you while you have that area of executive conversations that we will preserve, you can chime in, you can get involved. So we had just very recently we created a publication on agile working in legal departments and agile working in law firms. And we had two general counsels working alongside my scrum master from my legal team, which is a fair bit of difference in terms of ranks, but they couldn't care less, because she knew a lot of stuff from practical experience, how to work in agile mode and how to do, what she had learned. And it was just eye-level conversation. Everyone learned from each other. And she kind of almost fainted when I told her that who was sitting next to her throughout all these calls, because that's exactly the opportunity that we provide, that we can, take this further. And within the Liquid Legal Institute, we made it clear that at the point of our development and evolution, while we are diverse and preserve diversity in our work, in our summits, in whatever we do, there's also time and room that we want to create for an international community of business leaders to have their exchange, and using the proven concept that Mark, Bill, and Michelle had created is immediately resonated, and in fact quite a few numbers of our members had been dual members anyway, and so for them it was kind of like yeah, sure, great idea, let's do it. So let's combine the two worlds. So that was kind of the core of the messaging in both ways.
Speaking today with Mark Cohen and Dierk Schindler, who've just announced the strategic union of their respective organizations, the Digital Legal Exchange and the Liquid Legal Institute. So far in our conversation, they've shared the origins of their organizations, how LLI grew from a book project in 2018 to a member-driven community spanning the legal sector, and how DLEx emerged as a think tank focused on helping general counsel and legal executives transform their functions for the digital age. One notable aspect of this combination is the complementary nature of their approaches. Both share common goals, methods, and even some members, and both focus on applied research, community building, and practical solutions. When we return, we'll explore more about what legal transformation really means to Mark and Dierk, and learn more about their vision for how this combined organization will evolve in the coming years. But first, please take this opportunity to learn about the great sponsors who so generously support this podcast. Is your law firm drowning in administrative work? Practice Panther is the game-changing practice management software that gives you back your most valuable asset, time. With automated workflows, secure document sharing, and seamless time tracking, you'll reduce errors and increase efficiency across your entire practice. Imagine handling client intake, case management, and billing all from one intuitive platform. Join the tens of thousands of attorneys who've already revolutionized their practice with Practice Panther. Start your free trial today at practicepanther.com. Voice recognition is great for quick texts or emails, but when accuracy matters, AI guesses. As you well know, in law, guessing isn't an option. With SpeakRight, real human transcriptionists deliver accurate, professionally formatted legal documents in about 3 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The free mobile app provides instant access to trained legal secretaries, plus Clio integration for seamless filing. It's like carrying a full support staff on your phone. LawNext listeners claim your $100 free credit right now at speakright.com/LawNext. Welcome back to LawNext, where I'm speaking with Mark Cohen and Dierk Schindler about the merger of their legal transformation organizations, the Digital Legal Exchange and the Liquid Legal Institute. Both Mark and Dierk emphasized earlier in our conversation how this combination represents more than just the sum of its parts, creating what Mark called a situation where 1 and 1 makes 11. In our next segment, we'll dive deeper into what that 11 actually looks like and what legal transformation actually means in today's rapidly evolving environment. We'll also learn more about what the future holds for this newly combined organization. Let's get back to the conversation. Mark, your organization has had these salons that you've been doing. Dierk, you've got Summit and other events you do. What happens to all of that? How do they all come together going forward?
So, if I may start, Mark. So,
sure.
Basically we will continue the salon events. It is a known format. It is a well accepted format. It's very well prepared and run. So, don't change a working system and it is well accepted. What we will do is, and already have done, is of course expressing an invitation, if I may say, to the general counsels and business leaders in our pre-existing legal community to chime in, and they can't wait, of course, to jump on board there. So that's one, and vice versa. We are in the mode of explaining to the DLEx members the breadth of the working modes that the Liquid Legal Institute has, which really ranges from, you mentioned the summits, but there's also roundtable events to the hot topics, starting from artificial intelligence, agile working, contract lifecycle management, and so, as you know, the full beauty of topics that are keeping our members awake day and night, basically. And of course, also the publications we have. And clearly, we are offering that immediately up to the new members. We are very much in open source mode anyway. So in terms of because we want to create impact, we share what we produce fairly openly anyway. But of course, that's the immediate access everyone gets to our knowledge base. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Mark?
No, I think Dierk has covered the waterfront very well.
I probably should have asked you this earlier, but we've been talking, throughout this conversation about the concept of legal transformation, and I don't know whether we've ever actually quite defined what that means to you. And I hope it doesn't sound trite to even ask it, but how do you think about what legal transformation means? Mark, you want to start with that and go?
Sure. Bob, I'm glad you asked the question because I think it's like so many what have become buzzwords in our industry. You ask 100 people in the industry that question and you'll probably get about 110 different answers. So I would define legal transfer. Well, first I would start by saying I think that legal transformation, to be understood, it is largely not organic, in my opinion. It is largely being driven by two things: by business directly and by business's response to a changing world. That is what's driving legal transformation. Mm-hmm. And so it almost becomes a bit of a misnomer because, as I've written, I think legal transformation is a business story. So you really have to understand that. You really have to look at how the world has changed and how that has changed business and how that has caused business to look at the legal function and say, hey, if you are going to serve our needs and the needs of our customers in a digital world, in an AI world, then you're going to have to start doing things differently. And I think the keys to doing differently are you're going to have to take a much broader view of what the legal function is or what it should be. You're going to have to, start thinking as legal as something that it cuts across almost all areas of a business. And it's got to have to, operate more as a business. That's not to say it's got to throw away its code of ethics and things like that. No. But it certainly has to, be more proactive. It has to be more data-driven. It has to have a digital core, which is a lovely expression that Accenture coined for having a fundamental understanding of data analytics, artificial intelligence and technology more broadly, and the cloud. That has become the lingua franca across business. And if legal is going to competently and zealously serve its client, it's got to speak that language. It's got to. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the key points I would say, Bob, that I would put into my definition of that composite term.
Yeah. Dirk, what about you? Do you have, does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. And I'm smiling because this is whenever we talk, and we do that fortunately over many years by now. So I knew what was coming, and it's always a joy to listen and get it so well put. But what I would add is
my wife, please, Dirk.
Yeah, just took a note.
Okay, thank you. I'll replay this part of the tape.
What I would add is, and just in terms of an additional footnote, I would say transformation has a lot to do with mindset, first and foremost. This is not a project. This is not about technology, first and foremost. This is about, people, but first of all, it's a mindset. It's a different view, as you put it, Mark, to the legal ecosystem and how it functions, and understanding that this will continuously change over years, and we are not looking at a transformation that is done at some point. So the mindset of ever faster evolution and shifts is I think at the core. And the second element that I would add is the way we look at things at the Liquid Legal Institute is people, process, and technology, and then of course the law itself and regulation. But people, process, and technology, and very easily, and I think in the legal tech wave we learned that the hard way. People, very quickly move to technology, and and when it, think about transformation or what comes with that, and our what we call the AI North Star now, or the transformation North Star at the Liquid Legal Institute, it starts with people. So we need to create a framework, a mindset, and the framework required for that to bring the people along, but also to bring the people in. And what do I mean by that? And that's almost, not almost, it's in the name, Liquid Legal Institute. It's not the Liquid Lawyers Institute, it's the Liquid Legal Institute. So we invite everyone in the ecosystem. So Bernhard Waltel, one of our co-founders and board members, he has a PhD in computer science of the Technical University of Munich. He's probably one of the brightest minds in artificial intelligence, and he's on the board of the Liquid Legal Institute, rightfully so, because we need that type of deep thinking from other professions, and that's just one important one: technology, computer science. But the same goes with organizational development, with HR, with we need all these people to chime in. So Liquid Legal Institute, and liquid is, to what Mark said, changing the state of aggregation. This is not a concrete kind of, let me almost call it a stone, carved in stone, how lawyers or legal needs to work, but we need to go where the business is, where the business needs us. We need to change the state of aggregation, basically, and move to where the business or the clients require our services in the way, they that make things work. And Institute also underlining that this is not something you can do between, the night and the morning, but you need to,
Bob, may I just add one very quick thing, and I'll let you ask your next question. I'll just say, Dierk, I'm smiling by your response as well, and I would just add 2 words: curiosity and creativity. Those are 2 things that when I was a baby lawyer, and I suspect you the same, Bob, that wasn't, sort of on the menu. Creativity, you were not encouraged to be creative. You were not particularly encouraged to be curious, maybe a little so curious, but certainly not creative. And I'm delighted to say that in today's world, I think that has become a real requisite for lawyers. That, in line with what Dierk's saying, you have to be thinking in terms of, the talking head said, stop making sense. Now we have to start thinking about, let's start making sense. How can we do things better? How can we use the human resources and the technological resources at our disposal to reimagine the way things are done? I think that is probably the most exciting part of being in this industry today.
So I realize that the two of you have known each other and spoken a number of times over the years, but technically this is sort of day one of this union going forward. You're starting out down this path now. How do you see this now sort of combined organization evolving over the next year, over the next couple of years? What's the future look like for Liquid Legal Institute and with the DLEx integrated into it?
Happy to start. So we are member driven. So for me, the vision would be in the coming years that we serve what we just talked about to our members really well. So we clearly are evolving as an organization as well. So we put a lot of thought into how to make the Liquid Legal Institute, take it global, while preserving the independence, the neutrality, and the diversity in thinking in people. So just using that as an acceleration on that path is to me one clear goal in the for the benefit of our members. Second, I would really hope that as we started with the books that we're also publishing, the next one coming up, Sustaining the Rule of Law, kind of a good timing, I would say. And so continuing to be a voice and strengthening a voice in the market, and that's clearly not talking about me or not even only Mark, but giving our membership the voice of collaboration and what they can do, and clearly also the outputs that we create. So continuing on that path as well. And as a third element, I think we have a really fascinating opportunity at our hands that we have an organization with a really strong executive cohort now, as we move forward, but embedded in a vibrant community of, let me call it, their teams, which they can, as I described earlier, put to work, put to creation of output. And if those two strengths are truly combined, I think this could be a fascinating place that can create impact. And we are in discussions with law schools and other institutions where we can join forces to really make a difference and kind of funnel the work and the brain power of our membership to make that difference that we are all striving for in the legal ecosystem. So that would be my take. Mark.
Mark, anything to add to that?
No, I think it's a superb summation. I just say that, Bob, in addition to going to you first to cover the story, we are our combined forces of Liquid Legal and the Digital Leaders Exchange at Liquid Legal at Legal Tech Talk in London this year are going to have a special evening event which will be attended by 50 or so general counsel of multinationals. And it's sponsored by Accenture, And we are at that point not only going to unveil, sort of our union, but talk, I think, very pointedly about ways that this is going to really turbocharge the industry impact that we intend to have, not so much for our organization, so much as what our organization could do for the larger industry, and to be a kind of a global repository for all the things that Dierk has very eloquently outlined.
And I'll put links to those events in the show notes as well, listeners, if you're curious about finding out information on those. We are just about out of time here, but I always like to, since I sit here shooting questions your way for 45 minutes, I always like to stop and see if there's anything else that you wanted to say that I haven't asked you about. So Dierk, let me start with you. Anything else you'd like to say in closing?
So the one thing is really a huge thank you to Mark and well, not present, Michelle and Bill, because what we experience too often in the industry is kind of segregation rather than cooperation, collaboration, or even integration. And that has been in the DNA of the LLI from the very beginning. And an organization and high-profile people as those three and the membership they represent to be so open and kind of lead the charge and saying, like, if we collaborate, integrate, there's so much more we can do. It's just a big thank you, because I think that could also serve maybe as a nice example for what we need in our industry moving forward much more.
Mm-hmm. Mark, what about you? You get the last word today.
Oh, well, thank you. I'll just say that I agree. I think collectivism is something that really is desperately needed. It's needed in the country, it's needed in the world, and it's needed in our industry. And this is just a small sliver of that. But to Dierk's point, I think, that I always tell my daughters, cream rises. Sometimes you have to stir it a little bit more, but it does rise. And I think that by being involved in collective efforts with people who are not necessarily on all fours aligned with you, that helps. But, the notion of collaborating with others to do something bigger, I think is really, really important. The legal industry for a long time, as I've observed, it has been too much of a zero-sum game. And I love the idea as I get older of just being part of a larger organization. And, you don't have to be the leader of it. You just have to do your own contribution. And I think that there is intrinsic value to that, as well as extrinsic value. So I am just delighted to be part of this larger whole. And I thank Dierk and his colleagues for making this happen. And Bob, I thank you very much for giving us your very valued platform to have this conversation with you.
Well, congratulations to the two of you and to everybody involved in this. And I really appreciate your both taking the time to come on the show and talk about it and share the news. And I will be following with great interest to see how this evolves over time.
Great. We'll hope to be able to come back soon and tell you a bit about how it is evolving.
Love to have you back.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to share your own thoughts or comments, you can do so by messaging us on LinkedIn or other social media, or just email me directly, ambrogi@gmail.com. If you're a fan of the show, leave us a review. LawNext is a production of LawNext Media. I'm your host, Bob Ambrogi. I hope you'll join us again next time for another episode of LawNext.